Okay, so now that we've finished our contract, at least the beginner portion of it, what we're going to do is we're going to connect it to a front end using React. So the first step for doing that is we're going to create a folder specifically for all of our TEALScript development files. So basically I'm going to move all of these files into its own directory. So I'm just going to create a new directory here. I'm going to call it TEALScript. And I'm going to go ahead and copy everything other than the dev containers into this TEALScript directory. Okay, so at this point, you should now have a TEALScript folder in your top level directory, and then the exact contents of the repo we had before underneath TEALScript. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to, in this root directory, so in tsBeginner.en, we're going to run the command algokit init. And we are going to select the React template. So before we selected TEALScript to develop our contract, and now we're going to select React to deploy our front end. So we're going to hit React, and I'm going to call it front end. It's going to start the template copy. And I'm just going to go ahead and select all of the default options here. Now, of course, as you're building your own app, you can pick and choose which ones you want. But for the bootcamp, if you want to follow along, definitely make sure you choose all the default. In particular, make sure you choose Tailwind in Daisy UI. So that's going to go ahead and get bootstrapped for us. So give it a minute to set up that directory. Actually, I'm going to cancel this as it is now. And just so it doesn't open up a new tab, because it normally does. So now at this point, we have our TEALScript directory, which has our contract, and our front end directory, which has our front end. And what we want to do is we're going to run algokit bootstrap all. Now, the nice thing about bootstrap is it will go ahead and bootstrap all of my dependencies all the way downstream. So it's going to bootstrap all the dependencies on front end and all the dependencies in TEALScript. And this is one of the reasons why using Bootstrap is preferred or using just npm install, because it'll automatically resolve subdirectories and install the dependencies. Now, the other thing here is you can see, because I canceled it earlier, it's saying .env already exists. But the other thing Bootstrap does is it initializes a .env file. And that's not included by default before running Bootstrap, because we don't want that to be checked into GitHub. Okay, so now what we've done is we've bootstrapped our repositories. We can see here that we've bootstrapped two different npm packages, one for the TEALScript and one for front end. And now if we go to cd front end, so in our front end directory, we will run npm run dev. What's going to happen is it's going to open up a front end just like this. And so now what we need to do is, if you go to wallet connection and connect to your KMD, you'll notice that it didn't work. And so if we take a look at our console here, we can see that we failed to connect to KMD, right? Error connection refused. And the reason that's happening is because it's trying to connect to KMD on my local host, but I want to connect to KMD in my Codespace. So the first thing we got to do is we got to come to front end and then open up our .env. In this front end.env file is where it contains all the information about how we connect to the network. So by default, it assumes you're connecting to a local network. And it also has configurations for testnet and mainnet. So what we want to do is we basically want to change this. Instead of connecting to localhost, we want to change it to connect to our GitHub Codespace. So if we come over here to ports, what we want to do is come on down to each port, algod, KMD, and indexer, and copy the URL. So I'm going to right click on algod, copy local address, and then paste that in. And then I'm also going to change the port to 443 because we're connecting to HTTPS. So before this was Algokit port 4001. Now we have the URL with 4001. I'm going to do the same thing for, we're going to do the same thing for our Git pod, or for our indexer. Well, that was the wrong URL. Yeah. Do the same thing, just got a little confused there. Do the same thing for our indexer, just a 443. And then we're going to come down to KMD and do the same thing. Copy local address, replace localhost, and replace the port with 443. So we should now see Algokit server is our code space with a 4001. Our indexer is our code space with 8980. And our KMD is our code space with 4002. And all of our ports are going to be 443 because we're always going to use HTTPS. So now if we come back, we can see because we modified our env, Vite has restarted the server. So if I come over back to my front end here, I'm going to reload just to clear the console a bit. And I go ahead and connect. Oh, it's going to throw an error probably because I don't have my ports open yet. I forgot to do this. So I'm going to come back here, go back to the ports menu. I'm going to change all my port visibilities to public. So Algokit to public, KMD to public, and indexer to public. Now, if you're still using the same code space you've been using throughout the bootcamp and following along, then you shouldn't need to do this again. However, I just initialized a new code space, which is why I needed to do it again. So now I'm going to come back over to the front end. Let's try it one more time. Wallet connect, local wallet. And now we can see that we've connected to this local wallet, this AXR wallet. And so if I come back here, I can see that my front end server is running, and this is the server that it's running. Okay, so, and also if you want, you can try sending transactions. You can read the getting started page here for Algokit. But I'm going to end the video here. And at this point, we've basically set up our environment for working on our front end with our contract. Now, the next step is we'll actually talk about how we can start modifying this template and begin implementing our TEALScript contract connection.